It's showtime.
This is my earliest memory of seeing Godzilla on screen for the first time, which is kind of bittersweet looking back at it now because I'm a dad. Godzilla's kind of goofy here and way less scary than his historical film debut, but 1967's Son of Godzilla is the movie that led me to check out that 1954 original. Just a couple of years later, I watched, I don't know, at least 10 Godzilla vs. insert any monster movies. And I went to the theaters with my family to watch an Americanized version of Godzilla directed by Roland Emmerich, the dude known for Independence Day, Universal Soldier, and Stargate. When I watched it as a kid, I thought the movie was kind of cool. And even after rewatching it years later with a brain, it's not great. But I have fond memories of it, and I wouldn't classify it as the worst movie ever made.
I am Goku. I am Ozaru. To be at one with myself, I must be two.
It's a guilty pleasure, I guess you could say. Now, after a Western resurgence and much better depiction of the titular monster than this, as well as Toho's Shin Godzilla in 2016, which had pretty good reviews from what I read, but with real life chaos, I just never really got around to watching it. I know it's kind of a bummer. Let's fast forward to the present, here in December 2023. Godzilla Minus One is already the highest grossing Japanese film released in North America, and it's been getting rave reviews from both critics and fans alike. Just taking a glance at the Rotten Tomatoes score, which I never really care for, because it's kind of hard to know which reviews are paid for and which ones are actually genuine and unbiased. But to see that the audience and critics actually agree on this movie should pique anyone's interest that it must be doing something right.
Okay, yeah, you make a good point.
So hearing about all this positive word of mouth, and being a fan of Godzilla to begin with, I had to check it out for myself. Still, going in, I wasn't expecting more than another movie where Godzilla just shows up out of nowhere and basically breaks shit. No problem with that, it's dumb fun I enjoy watching. And then I watched the movie, and guess what? That's exactly what we get, but also so much more. This movie has depth, charisma, emotional moments, and of course, Godzilla being a fucking menace. I seriously wasn't expecting to like this movie so much, but it's just too damn good. As of right now, it's my favorite movie of 2023, and I don't think anything is going to pass it in the next few weeks. Unless maybe Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom takes that mantle. Alright, so moving right along, think of everything that I've said so far as my introduction, and I'll break the rest of this video down by discussing the acting, the story, Godzilla, and some of the special effects, themes, and lastly, my conclusion. For those of you that haven't seen the movie, just be warned there's going to be a few minor spoilers, but nothing that should ruin the first time viewing experience for you, hopefully. Probably the most surprising aspect of this movie is how good the acting is. But usually in a Godzilla movie, or any giant monster movie for that matter, the actors are flat and lack enough emotion in their performances to make us care for their characters. Of course, it's not all the actors' faults. A chunk of this can be attributed to their screen time and the writing. If the dialogue and the story aren't well developed, can we really blame them?
Goddamn right.
But really, it's up to the writers to give them something to work with, and it's up to the director to guide them to help bring out the best performance they can for the roles. Again, I get it, the basic blueprint of a Godzilla movie is giant fire-breathing lizard destroys buildings and steps on people, so no one really goes in expecting top-tier acting. I know and you know what we're getting into, and these kinds of films know what they are. While watching Minus One though, I gotta say, it was refreshing to see actors that actually put effort into their performances. For those of you that don't know, the movie plays in Japanese with English subtitles, but I had no issues following what was happening. I mean, besides the obvious reason that I can read. What I'm trying to say is, the actors' chemistry and various reactions to different tragic events in the film made it easier to follow the story. So in that regard, the acting here actually kind of helps the pacing too. I've heard some people criticize the acting, saying it's a little bit too whiny, or something like that, but I don't think so. Next up, the story. Again, minor spoilers ahead, but I won't delve too much into it. In pretty much every Godzilla movie that I've watched, I never care for the characters. I honestly root for Godzilla. But with this movie, I felt invested in these characters and had genuine concern for whether they would live or die. I was like, I hope that person survives, or I wonder if this person lives. And I'm not the type of person who cries during a movie. This was sad though. If you didn't cry during that part, you're a monster! But really though, I choked up a few times. The film was written and directed by Takashi Yamazaki. He also did the visual effects along with Kyoko Shibuya, but I'll get into that later. By the way, sorry if I mess up any of the names, but just bear with me. The movie is set during the last days of World War II, after the US drops bombs on Nagasaki and Hiroshima. And the core of the story revolves around a kamikaze pilot named Koichi Shikishima, who gets cold feet, basically. He lands on Odo Island, claiming that his plane is faulty, but the mechanics can't find anything wrong with it. Koichi's will to live is what kept him alive, but throughout the film he struggles with feelings of disgrace, survivor guilt, and severe PTSD. And if those issues weren't bad enough for him, Godzilla shows up to wreak havoc. But not in the way you would think, at least not at first. And in the middle of all this, Koichi meets a woman named Noriko Oshi who rescues an orphan baby, Akiko. Together they form this unexpected surrogate family of sorts, and as Godzilla's path of as Godzilla's path of destruction continues, the US refuses any support due to rising tensions with the Soviets, and Koichi and the others can't rely on their own Japanese government either, who basically try to sweep it under the rug. They don't warn any of their citizens about this giant lizard monster, and their justification is that they don't want the people to panic. I'm not going to go into any more details of the plot because this is a movie you have to watch, and honestly, I feel like I already gave away too much. Now I want to talk about the man, or should I say, the lizard of the hour, the king of the monsters himself, Godzilla. We don't get the anti-hero who teams up with another kaiju to stop our greater threat, Godzilla, or Dad Godzilla. No, we get a Godzilla that gives absolutely no fucks, and he does what he wants here. When he first appears, he looks different than how we're used to seeing him, and I'll just leave it at that. And he does stuff in this movie that I don't think I've ever seen in any other Godzilla movie. Like, if you've seen the movie, you'll know what I'm talking about. It's both terrifying and kind of badass, honestly. Between the way he moves, the look of his scales, his seriously creepy red eyes, and that pissed off look on his dinosaur-like face, Godzilla is really well designed here. And Godzilla's atomic breath is the most epic I think I've ever seen it. Yamazaki, Shibuya, and everyone else on the effects team did a really fantastic job. I've talked about this in a previous video, but the less is more approach, when done right, can elevate aspects of a film. In this case, there's some tense scenes where Godzilla is chasing a boat in the ocean, but he's not fully visible. You know, just kind of like his head is showing, basically. And you can see like a little part of his body, but not really. Almost like a shark in the water. I looked it up, and Yamazaki said that one of his influences for this movie was Spielberg's Jaws, and I can definitely see that. This choice adds a layer of suspense, in my opinion. And also, thinking about it from a cost perspective, this was a smart move because with less of Godzilla showing on screen, I would imagine it helped with the budget, which is relatively low at only $15 million. When I heard it was that cheap, it really surprised me because it looks better than most of these $200 million franchise releases that have come out in recent years. Before I delve into the themes in the movie, I have to mention the sound. The way it's used is incredibly effective. From the vibration of Godzilla stepping into town, or buildings crashing down, to something completely opposite, like utter silence. And the score, oh man, chef's kiss. It was awesome. It blends new elements while leaning heavy into sampling the original's powerful and foreboding tone. Okay, so onto the various themes of -1. The most obvious is that Godzilla is an allegory for the fear of nuclear weapons and the destruction that it causes. Now, this is nothing new. This has been the case since Godzilla was created back in 1954, and it's no different here. There's also this exploration of environmental concerns. Not to get, too political or anything, but in a way, Godzilla's destructive rampage serves as a commentary on humanity's impact on the world and how nature fights back. I mean, think about it, even the concept of Godzilla being birthed out of the atomic bomb echoes this sentiment to some degree. Another theme which can be felt throughout the film is identity. The people of Japan are trying to find their footing in the face of defeat and disaster. On a more personal level, Koichi has to deal with the shame that comes with the stigma of failing to sacrifice himself for the greater good of his country. This, along with his survivor guilt and PTSD that I briefly mentioned earlier, he has a lot of internal demons that break his confidence in who he is or who he should be. This leads into another theme, forgiveness. And I don't just mean with others being able to forgive Koichi, but also, can he forgive himself? Is he able to let go and move on? Lastly, this movie has a big anti-war message, reminding us of the devastating effects of war and conflict. Real quick, what does The Lion King, The Lost World Jurassic Park, Final Destination 2, The Dark Knight, Tron Legacy, Evil Dead, Mad Max Fury Road, Top Gun Maverick, and now Godzilla Minus One all have in common. If you've seen all these, then you would A, move on because this is a meaningless question and you just don't care. Or B, you might try to overanalyze each of these to find something, anything that binds them together. And if that's what you want to do, by all means, go for it. Heck, make a video on it. I'll even check it out if you do. But what these movies have in common goes beyond simply saying, whether true or not, that they share great visuals or they have fantastic soundtracks or whatever else you come up with. But for me, there's a thing that holds them collectively in my mind. This thing could be the same for you or alien. Okay, I know, enough of beating around the bush. In one word, they're memorable. They're the best theater experiences that I've ever had. Let me know in the comments what your best theater experiences have been. And, you know, there's movies that I wish I had seen in theaters, like my favorite horror movie of all time, John Carpenter's The Thing, or my favorite Christmas movie, Gremlins, or just my favorite movie in general, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. But I either wasn't born yet or I just learned to walk, so obviously, you know. What I'm getting at is that this is an event film that I'm going to remember for years to come, because Godzilla Minus One isn't just a giant monster movie. It's an epic and tragic tale that drew me in with its multi-layered characters, epic throwback score, amazing cinematography, solid story, and one of the most badass depictions of Godzilla that I've ever seen. In my eyes, this is a masterpiece. So if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it, especially if you're a monster movie fan, a Godzilla fan, or you just want to see a really dope movie. Now, if you've managed to stick around this long with my monotone voice, thank you. I would honestly love to hear your thoughts on this movie down in the comments. If you liked it, let me know. If you fucking hated it, also, let me know. And if you enjoyed this video, please like, maybe share, and subscribe. Catch you later. Peace.
Godzilla -1